Well, the big news that is coming in is that today Civil Aviation Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, in his question and answer webinar on Facebook Live, mentioned that there could be a very strong possibility of resuming international flights in India. In fact, in terms of timeline, he also discussed that he sees international flights to be starting before the month of August. He also hinted that mid-June could be a probable time where the government is looking to, of course, resume to international flight services. But he also mentioned that it also depends on the situation of the pandemic in the country. Of course, government has already announced resuming domestic flights from 25th of May, which is just day after tomorrow, and it has also announced that these flights will be running on a 33% capacity initially, which is for the first week. And of course, it is in the month of June that further details will be mentioned. But the big question that viewers and the big question that a lot of passengers are asking is about the quarantine requisite, is about the mandatory quarantine, institutional quarantine that has to be taken. For this, Hardeep Singh Puri in his last press conference had mentioned that no mandatory institutional quarantine for domestic flights, but he also mentioned that it is up to the states and the states to decide what kind of mandatory requirements and norms they would like to look into. Just today morning, Karnataka government announced that they have imposed a 7-day institutional mandatory quarantine for people coming across from Bombay, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, etc. In fact, they've also mentioned that people coming from other states will be home quarantined. Well, this is the first such state who has given this information officially on record. There hasn't been any other state who is yet informed, which is assumed that right now only home quarantine is the way out for other such airports. In terms of Arogya Setu app, Hardeep Singh Puri today brought in clarity in his webinar, mentioning that Arogya Setu app is not mandatory for everybody. If you do not have the app or if your phone is not compatible, then you can also submit a self-declaration form that, of course, mentions that you are COVID-19 negative and that you do not have anything to be worried about flying, and of course will not be a risk to other passengers. But he also mentioned that the government and the state governments are very proactive in terms of supporting Arogya Setu app, and that people should download it if they can or if they have compatible phones. That's the latest coming in from Hardeep Singh Puri, who's the Civil Aviation Minister, day after domestic flights to start and resumption of international flights likely to be by June mid.